Hey there, so Kanban University just released the official guide to the Kanban method. We here at Scroll North are very excited about this launch. So let's spend a few minutes walking you through the new guide. The guide actually has 4 major sections. Section 1, and basically some background about the Kanban method. Section 2, a look at principles and practices of the Kanban method. Section 3, a way of explaining Kanban using a highway metaphor dubbed Kan-Bahn. Section 4, an overview of a few specific Kanban practices. So let's get started with reviewing each section. Section 1 starts by explaining that the Kanban method is intended for professional services or knowledge work. It's about improving things with your customers in mind. It includes a poster highlighting the major parts of the Kanban method, and these are explained in more detail later in the guide. Page 4 starts by explaining that Kanban is not a framework or process, rather a method to improve your existing processes. Kanban's origins in lean manufacturing is also mentioned, and while it shares things like pull systems and WIP limits with lean, Kanban is less focused on the costly waste of tangible inventories, but more on the flow of getting to value. Areas of application of Kanban are identified outside of just IT and technology, and a few examples are listed in the guide. We move on to section 2. There are principles and practices in Kanban, and you can practice them at different scales, teams, departments, or even the whole organization. I like how they said there's no right and wrong Kanban. Definitely agree with that. The change principles are covered on page 5 of the guide, where it details out how to use insights to trigger acts of leadership to allow for continuous improvement. Kanban tries to avoid big bang changes. The section on service delivery principles guides you to seeing what you do now as a service and realize that your organization is organized across a network of these services that depend on each other. Page 6 and 7 cover the Kanban general practices. They are visualize, ways to see hidden work, limit WIP, understand how work in process impacts the flow of work, manage flow, ways to see and ensure work is flowing, in particular in conjunction with metrics. Make policies explicit, not instructions, but more working agreements that allow us to perform consistently. Feedback loops. Some types are meant for coordinating the work and others are meant for improving your capability. Improve collaboratively, a collaborative approach to continuous improvement. We move on to part 3, which is the highway metaphor to explain Kanban. Now, most people know the famous German Autobahn, so Kan-Bahn is kind of a play on words here. I've used the highway model to help a lot of our clients get Kanban concepts, so I really like its use in the guide. Some key messages from the metaphor include this contrast between utilization and throughput. It suggests we may be less interested in keeping our highways full versus keeping our traffic moving. Types of work. On highways, we have all types of vehicles, cars, trucks, motorcycles for all sorts of different purposes. Class of service. Not everyone gets to use the highway the same way. There are ambulances and fire trucks and carpool lanes. Manage flow. On highways, entrances are open and closed periodically. We may restrict vehicles of certain types at certain hours. Visualize. A traffic control center may have a live model of all the streets. Limit parallel work. Traffic lights and other rules allow us to prevent overuse of parts of our highways to avoid congestion. The concept of pull is explained by signals on the highway. Is there space in front of you with no other cars? It's a signal that you can proceed forward. Flow of work. We may collect traffic data to improve our highways. Blockers. Accidents cause slowdowns on the highways. Explicit policies. We have signs on the road and rules that need to be known before we even get our driver's license. Feedback loops. LED signs on the road or GPS systems give us real-time information. Improve the system. Highways regularly improve with new signs, new rules, and sometimes even new lanes. Your process may need to do the same. Commitment point. Once we decided to get on the highway, we need to see the journey through at least to the next exit. It's challenging and costly to change your mind later. Earlier, the guide outlined Kanban general practices. Part 4 of the guide, the last section, covers Kanban specific practices. On page 11, static spelt with a K is explained. It's used either to kick off or refresh a Kanban implementation, and it helps you understand how you're currently working so that your Kanban system can be designed to be effective in your context. There are 6 steps detailed. Following static, the guide details a few more specific practices. Kanban boards are common ways of visualizing your work using columns and cards. WIP limits, they govern how many cards are allowed in a specific area of your board. The guide also discusses the most common metrics. A lot are focused on lead time, throughput, and WIP visualization. The last page of the guide covers cadences. This is Kanban's specific practice for feedback loops. The cadences you end up with is dependent on the type of Kanban you are practicing. So there's stuff for teams, services, organizations, and 3 team-based examples of cadences are listed in the guide. And so there you have it. We've just walked through the new Kanban guide. Don't forget to visit the Kanban University's website to download your free copy of the guide, link in the description. And if you're ready to bring the guide to life, check out Squirrel North's website for training and coaching services that are all about making your adoption successful.